Welcome, fellow human beings who spend their Sundays, sometimes Thursdays and Mondays, rooting for the New York Jets, to the first installment of WTF is Up with the Jets. This is going to be a change of pace from my normal videos where there's upbeat music, in somewhat of character, and it's going to be a little bit more chill, change of pace. We got a few headlines to get to. And if you like this type of video, let me know by smashing the like button. And if you don't, comment below so I'm not wasting my time making content that nobody likes. If you like this Jets hat I'm wearing and you want that one right there, go ahead and hit subscribe. All right, let's get right into it. Our headline: what would it take for the New York Jets to make the playoffs in 2022? And I know, I can hear the comments already. We haven't even had the draft yet. We're in a rebuilding mode. We can't talk about playoffs yet. I'm thinking of Jim Mora memes coming, right? Playoffs? Well, the draft is still 16 days away, and there's only so many mock drafts we can do, so let's talk about it. I got in this conversation when I was on NFL Chaos with Jeremy. Sub to him if you haven't already. And we talked about a ton of things that would it take for the Jets to make the playoffs, including certain stats from certain players and stats from certain units. But the more I thought about it, it really comes down to three things. Three things the New York Jets would need to do in order to make the playoffs. And it starts, first and foremost, it starts with the quarterback. It absolutely starts with the quarterback. Let's look at the division winners from last year. In the AFC, Bills had the best quarterback in their division, Josh Allen. Chiefs, best quarterback in their division, Patrick Mahomes. Titans, wasn't a stacked QB division, but Ryan Tannehill was the best quarterback in that division. They took home the division championship. Joe Burrow, best quarterback in the North, especially with Lamar Jackson being injured. And then look at the NFC. Stafford, best QB in the division. Rodgers, best QB in the division. Brady and Dak, by far the best quarterbacks in their respective divisions. So the best quarterback in every single division won the division. Now, is it realistic to expect Zach Wilson to leap over a fifth-year Josh Allen and become the best quarterback in the AFC East? No. But I think it is realistic for him to leap over Tua and Mac Jones and become the second-best quarterback in our division. If he hasn't done that by next year, he's a disappointment as the second overall pick. He is. Because every quarterback that is a franchise quarterback of the last decade, every one of them popped in year two. Every one of them, you saw that they were going to be special or at least a franchise guy in year two. So if Zach Wilson takes some baby steps forward and, he's 19 touchdowns and 12 picks next year and completes 61%, that's not good enough. That's not good enough. Now, sure, maybe he becomes a Jimmy G, a Kirk Cousins. Okay. That's still better than what the Jets have had, since an old Brett Favre before his arm fell off. But I'd be disappointed if we got an average starting quarterback with the second overall pick. Let's take a look at some other franchise quarterbacks from this decade and see what they accomplished in year two, and you'll see what I'm talking about. We're going to know if Zach Wilson has the goods really soon. By Thanksgiving of this year, we're going to know if he's got it. Let's look at year two for Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, MVP. Year two for Joe Burrow, Russell Wilson, made the Super Bowl. Year two for Deshaun Watson and Josh Allen. They took two floundering franchises to the playoffs. Justin Herbert, year two, threw for 5,000 yards. Kyler Murray, year two, made the Pro Bowl. Had 35 total touchdowns. Derek Carr, for basically a dumpster fire organization, no disrespect, threw for 30 touchdowns in his second year. So we're going to know. We're going to know if Zach Wilson is the guy next year. We're not going to do this thing where he takes some baby steps and it's a Sam Darnold situation where, well, maybe if we improve here, we improve there. No, because we've done enough. The offensive line is good enough. The tight ends are good enough. If we add a wide receiver early in the draft and a running back in the middle of late rounds, we've put enough around Zach Wilson to adequately assess him next year. I made tons of videos praising Zach Wilson and his unbelievable talent. And you get a pass as a rookie. You can have a clunker as a rookie. Josh Allen had a clunker as a rookie. Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson got to sit as rookies. But year 2, I got to see it. So I got Zach's back. I'm hyping him up. I love the potential. I love the talent. But my leash is going to be short. 10, 12 games in next year, we're going to know. We're going to know. Now, a lot of the quarterbacks that I just mentioned, I mentioned specific stats, right? Justin Herbert, 5,000 yards, total touchdowns from Kyler Murray. And you may be saying, well, that's not our system. That's not our system. Our system is run first and screen passes. And okay, that was the system that this staff ran in San Francisco with Jimmy Garoppolo. Now, if Zach Wilson is the transcendent player that you take second overall in the draft, he is the system. Or at the very least, the system is significantly tailored to his skill set. Jimmy G was picked in the second round. Zach Wilson was picked second overall. Let's look at some of those quarterbacks I mentioned. You tell me whether or not they are the system, or at least the system that they're in offensively is very tailored to their skill sets. Let's look at Lamar Jackson. Did the Ravens change their system after switching from Flacco to Lamar Jackson? Yeah. How about, do you think the Chargers had the same system for an aging Phillip Rivers as they do for Justin Herbert? Are they calling the same route concepts with Justin Herbert's arm and athleticism? No. The system is catered to Justin Herbert. Same thing with Tyrod Taylor switching to Josh Allen. Alex Smith to Patrick Mahomes. That's a different playbook. Jared Goff to Matt Stafford. That's a different playbook. So yes, some components of our system are going to be the same. We're going to be more run heavy than most offenses. I don't expect Zach Wilson to throw for 5,000 yards. But if he is the guy, if he is who we thought he is, to quote Mike Singletary, then the system should be specifically tailored to his incredible arm talent and his athleticism. So I don't want to hear that excuse. We got to see it next year from Zach. So that's number 1 to make the playoffs. It starts with quarterback, and we're going to know fairly soon Zach Wilson has to be the clear-cut second best quarterback in the AFC East next year for us to have a chance to make the playoffs. Now, the second thing that needs to happen, we talked about our quarterback. Well, we need to make other teams' quarterbacks uncomfortable. This is something I've talked about before. There's an analogy here that it really, really clicked to me when I thought about it. And there's a change that's happened over the last decade of the NFL. And it reminds me of a change that took place in the early to mid 2000s in the NBA. I grew up watching the NBA, and it was Kobe Bryant, Tracy McGrady, Vince Carter, Shaq, that era. And what was really valuable in that era was an individual wing defender. A Bruce Bowen, a Ron Artest, a Shane Battier, who would guard the other team's best scorer, the other team's best offensive weapon, usually a perimeter player. They would call them the Kobe stopper, the Tracy McGrady stopper, the Vince Carter stopper. Very valuable to have one of these players. Then the NBA went under a transformation where offensive skill players became more abundant. Power forwards could shoot threes. Your point guard wasn't just John Stockton passing anymore. It was guys like Allen Iverson could take it to the rim and dunk. And offensive coaches in the NBA got more adept at scheming the matchups they wanted. So because of those factors, the individual wing defender in the NBA became less valuable. There's a similar transitioning that has happened in the past decade in the NFL. It used to be really valuable just a decade ago, we know it better than anyone, to have a shutdown corner. Revis Island, take away half the field, right? However, just like in the NBA, in the NFL recently, offensive skill players have become more abundant. The fullback is gone. Now a slot receiver. Tight ends don't just block, they can catch. Your running back can catch. Your teams are going with more 3, 4 wide receiver sets. Mike Gesicki and Kyle Pitts are basically power forwards playing slot receiver. Similarly to the NBA, offensive coaches in the NFL have done a better job using scheme, motion, gadgetry to get the matchups that they want. Also, the rule changes in both sports have favored offense. So now the individual shutdown corner, if you're only covering one of my 5 eligible receivers, are you taking away half the field? No. So the value for the shutdown corner has decreased, just like the wing defender in basketball. Still valuable, but not as valuable. Now, what became more valuable in the NBA? Well, a big-time shot blocker. Because you could scheme everything up, get the matchups you wanted, you get to the basket, you still had to get through a Dwight Howard to score a bucket. Much more valuable. So who is the rim protector? Who's the shot blocker? Who's the Dwight Howard in the NFL? It's Myles Garrett. It's TJ Watt. It's Aaron Donald. Because you can scheme up everything perfectly. You can have a wide receiver juke a corner out of his shoes and have yards of separation. But if your quarterback is getting hit, it does not matter. Go ahead and YouTube the last play of the Super Bowl. Because Jamar Chase cooks Jalen Ramsey down the sideline. Game-winning touchdown it would have been. Joe Burrow never saw him because Aaron Donald was in his lap. That is the only way to beat the elite quarterbacks in the NFL now. The Bills have a good secondary. They could not get Patrick Mahomes off the field because they couldn't hit him. If you give Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Aaron Rodgers all day to sit in the pocket or to scramble, someone's getting open. Only way to beat these teams, hit their quarterback, disrupt their timing, disrupt their rhythm, force them into bad decisions, turnovers. It's the only way. That's how the Rams did it. In the second half, Cincinnati couldn't move the ball because Von Miller, Leonard Floyd, and Aaron Donald were in the backfield immediately. So that's number 2. We covered number 1. Our quarterback improves dramatically. Number 2, we improve our pass rush. So how do we do that? Well, we have the number 4 overall pick. That one's easy. Hopefully it's Kayvon Thibodeau. So now Zach Wilson's got his job to do. Become better than Mac Jones and Tua Tagovailoa because you are far and away more talented than both of them. And now Joe Douglas has his job. Go get us a dynamic edge rusher at 4. There's one more thing. One more ingredient that the New York Jets would need in order to be in contention for a playoff spot. We talked about Zach. We talked about Joe Douglas. Well, now Coach Saleh, he's got a job to do too. Because we need to be a disciplined and prepared football team. That's something that's been lacking for the past decade. Even with Rex Ryan, when we were good, we were undisciplined. So what's the marker of a disciplined team? Are we penalized heavily? How do we finish quarters and halves? Do we get that double dip action where we score at the end of a half and then get the ball to start the second half? The Bill Belichick special. How do our first 15 scripted plays from Mike LaFleur look? How do we adjust at halftime? Are we fundamentally sound? Are we a good tackling team? Do we communicate well? head coach to coordinator, coordinator to quarterback, quarterback to teammates, Mike linebacker to safety, Mike linebacker to defensive tackle. How are we situationally? Third down, fourth down, red zone, special teams. So that final piece is on the coaches. So in order for the Jets to be in contention for a playoff spot, Zach's got to get better, Joe's got to get us an edge rusher, and Robert Saleh has to turn this team into a well-prepared, disciplined, oiled machine. That's the formula. Let's move to some headlines. So big headline today. We have Matt Moyoko. I'm not sure if I'm saying his name right, but he's a blue check on Twitter, and he has a Pro Football Hall of Fame vote. So this guy's not throwing out clickbait, I'm assuming. He said, quote unquote, that Debo Samuel could be traded for the right price. Now, my first reaction to this is obviously everything has a price. That doesn't mean the 49ers are shopping Debo Samuel. I'm not currently selling my car, but if my neighbor comes over here and offers me 50% more than what it's worth, all of a sudden, my car is available. That's how that works. Now, Debo Samuel, would I do it? Well, specifically, would I do it for the package that the Jets tried to swing for Tyreek Hill? So what did that look like? The Jets offered up pick 35, 38, 69 in 2022, and then they kicked in a fourth rounder in 2023. Now, when I first saw that for Tyreek Hill, I thought that was a steal to not have to part with one of your first round picks. So I'm good with that capital because I think Debo Samuel, although obviously different styles, is, almost as valuable, probably about as valuable as Tyreek Hill when you consider his ability as a rusher. He's going to get you 1,700 yards of scrimmage yards, double-digit touchdowns, incredibly valuable. I'm good with that. I'm good with the draft capital. The thing that makes it a gut punch, though, is to give up those picks and then shell out like $30 million. That's tough. That's tough. So let's think about what those assets could get us if we kept them. Okay, 35 and 38, basically late first round picks. So you're hoping for high impact starters, above average starters. Pick 69, you're hoping for a guy who can develop into a starter. And then the fourth round, maybe you're looking at a high quality backup and special teamer. Then with 30 million, if you split that in half, you can get two borderline Pro Bowl players at other positions. I mean, 30 million, that's what we paid Laken Tomlinson, DJ Reed, and Tyler Conklin a combined. They made like 31.5 million. So two guys who are going to be starters and one guy who's going to be sharing snaps at tight end. So man, I mean, it could be like 5 starters that you'd part with. Now, would I do it? Yeah, I probably still would. Number one, because obviously those draft picks could bust. We know that better than anyone. One of those 4 picks is going to be a bust who like never really plays a role in the league at all. Just by the numbers, that's probably going to happen. And then talking about the money, I mean, the whole reason that you are good with the cap is that so you can sign elite players, right? That's one of the main reasons. And if you're getting an elite player who's an ascending talent, who's still young, that's what the salary cap is there for. All throughout the playoffs, you saw elite players making big plays in big spots. The Jets don't have a lot of elite players. They just don't. And another reason why I would do this is we have to think about what are our goals. Realistically, you have to pause and ask ourselves, what are our goals moving forward? And you might say every team's goal is to make the playoffs, win the Super Bowl. Okay, well, I mean, in order to make the Super Bowl, we're probably going to have to win the division, right? The Buffalo Bills are the number 1 betting favorite to win the Super Bowl next year. They have a top 5 quarterback. They're well coached. They don't really have any holes on their roster. So even if we put together all those things I mentioned before to make the playoffs, I still don't think those things are good enough to have us be the best team in the AFC East next year. Probably not. But what about some other goals? What about being exciting? What about being relevant? What about being able to justify the cost of our season tickets? What about having us on national TV and have it worth turning on the game? Like, those are some other goals, because the last 5 years, we have the worst record in the NFL. We've lost more games than the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Detroit Lions, the Houston Texans. Worst record in the NFL. And every time we get put on national TV, I almost don't even want to turn on the game, because it's been embarrassing, honestly. So Deebo brings relevance. He brings excitement. It's worth turning on the TV just to see Deebo. It's worth buying a ticket just to go see Deebo. And I think the same argument could have been made for Tyreek. Yeah. Some other goals. Besides, winning is obviously number one, and he would help us win, but he would also help us accomplish some other goals besides winning. So I'd swing it for Deebo. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Would that same package be worth it for Debo Samuel? Second headline. Let's move to this. Mike Sando reported that the New York Jets, quote unquote, swung at a bunch of players in free agency and quote unquote got nobody. Okay, this is complete BS. And he referenced Tyreek Hill specifically. Okay, the only thing that Joe Douglas could have done to acquire Tyreek Hill was move MetLife Stadium to Miami. That's the only thing he could have done. Tyreek Hill wanted to live in Florida. Even if he paid him more, the income tax difference between Florida and New Jersey, New York is like 7-8%. So you'd have to overpay by 8% just to make the money even. So then if you wanted to offer more than Miami, you're talking paying 15-20% more. I mean, you're talking giving him like quarterback money, close to $40 million. So should we have done that? I don't think anybody thinks we should have done that. So I'm not going to give Joe Douglas a big pat on the back that he tried, but I'm also not going to kill him. Like, yeah, he did his job. It didn't work out. Life goes on. On to the next. And okay, then let's talk about some of the players we did sign. Laken Tomlinson is a Pro Bowl guard who is one of the most respected players in the NFL. So he's nobody, according to Mike Sando. DJ Reed, 25-year-old corner. Incredible production last year. He's nobody. Jordan Whitehead, a heat-seeking missile to the football and Super Bowl champion. He's nobody. Tyler Conklin and CJ Uzomah, two best tight ends we've had in a decade. They're nobody. Having historic draft capital, 4 players in the top 40. Those guys are all going to be nobody. This is a non-story. And so any individual free agent, there's 32 teams. So on any individual free agent, if we break it up, every team has an even shot. That's a 3.1% chance to sign with any individual team. And when you're trying to poach free agents from other teams, that percentage is obviously lower because guys are more inclined to re-sign where they are. So you're talking a less than 3% chance to pry a guy away from his team. What are we talking about? And the article goes on to say we didn't get any big names. Okay. You know who got a lot of big names in free agency? The New York Jets from 2011 to 2019. And they did not make the playoffs once. Darrelle Revis the second time. That was a big name. Chris Johnson and Le'Veon Bell. Older running backs. Those were big names. Eric Decker. That was a big name. Tremaine Johnson. That was a big name. Extending Muhammad Wilkerson. That was a big name. Came super close to signing Ndamukong Suh. Remember that? And it's like the former Washington Redskins who would win free agency every year just by writing blank checks, and it would get them nowhere. So I respect Joe Douglas for having his walkaway number. And we're not just going to get abused anymore. We're not going to be the place players go to just cash out at the end of their career and have this quasi-retirement. It's like we're the pension fund of the NFL. Hey, come to the Jets when you're 31 and washed. Then when they cut you, You get their dead money coming to you until you're 33. You get like a little severance package, courtesy of the New York Jets. How do we stop doing that? By saying no. By saying, we're going to give you fair market value. And if you want to get overpaid, go to Jacksonville. Good luck. So we can stop getting abused by free agents. The free agents can stop using Jets rumors as leverage to up the price of other teams. Only way we stop that is by saying no. Only way you stop getting used by people in your life. You have a backbone. You say no. You say no. And Joe Douglas has said no. He didn't overpay. He didn't want to overpay. Every time that you have your walkaway number in your head on a big investment, right? And the price keeps going up and up, and you say, I could swing it. I could swing it. And you pull out the chase card or you sign the dotted line, man, you regret it. You regret it. You do, because you wanted to lease that car to impress some girl. You feel stupid driving that thing around by yourself and nobody cares. So good for Joe Douglas for having his walkaway number and being disciplined. Final headline of the day, Chris Sims released his edge rankings for prospects in the 2022 draft. And there was a guy outside of his top 5. Kayvon Thibodeau didn't make the top 5. And I don't think Chris Sims is a clickbait kind of guy. He's got some out there takes. He's been right a few times on some out there takes. I just think he's a guy who sees things a little bit differently. And I think this is genuinely how he feels. I don't think this is a clickbait situation at all. But Kayvon Thibodeau at number 6. And here's what this is, everybody. Here's exactly what this is. We have been in a relationship with Kayvon Thibodeau for too long. It's been about 3 months of the pre-draft process, right? Because right around NFL playoff time, that's when all the teams who have been bounced for the playoffs start. That's their mock draft season, right? And it's been about 3 months. And just like any relationship, it's magic for the first 3 months. Everything she does and says is amazing. It's incredible. There's nothing wrong with her. She's perfect, right? The first 3 months. And then you get a little bit more comfortable. You see a lot of her. And she's a human being. She's got some imperfections. And those start to show up. And your rose-colored glasses start to lose their tint. That's all that's happening with Kayvon Thibodeau. And we just need to look at Kayvon Thibodeau with new eyes, right? Because that's what he does in this video. He's looking at some edge rusher, Nick Bonito, and I looked him up. I hadn't heard much about him, and I was like, man, this guy, look at him. Look how fast he is. Look how explosive he is. But just imagine if we never heard of Kayvon Thibodeau, and he came down from outer space. The aliens dropped him off. Said, here's Kayvon Thibodeau. He's here to play football. You'd watch him and you'd be like, top 3 pick. Top 3 pick if you looked at him with new eyes. But we'd have too much time. We've gotten too comfortable with him. We've started overanalyzing him, his imperfections, the fact that he likes his brand, which so do you if you've updated your resume in the past 5 years. So do I. So does everybody. So does Tom Brady and LeBron James and Serena Williams. Like their brand. So does Donald Trump and Joe Biden like their brand. Like, what are we talking about here? So let's look at Kayvon Thibodeau with new eyes. Do that in your relationship too. Your fiance, your wife, your girlfriend for a few years. Look at her with new eyes. Take her out on a nice date. Tell her how amazing she is. And take Kayvon Thibodeau at number 4. That's it for me. The first episode of WTF is up with the Jets. If you like this long form content, like the video. Let me know in the comments below. I'll keep doing it. If you want this hat, actually this one right here, hit subscribe. I'll be talking to you all soon. Thank you so much for watching, and let's go Jets.